Good evening and welcome to 21st Century Saints. We are here live in the UK and around the world. Did I do that all right, Jane? Was that all right? Tonight we're going to be interviewing our star, Jane Christie, which is why I'm doing the introductions and the announcements. And she is our guest for the evening. She's putting her feet up. So what announcements have we got, ladies, first of all?
Okay, can I just remind everyone to hit like, hit subscribe. Please do that because that really helps us a lot. Also, give us some feedback. Let us know how you think we're doing, what you think of the podcast, what you'd like to see us do on the podcast. Other announcements: safeguarding in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is still shamefully appalling, woefully inadequate, and utterly disgusting.
Don't sit on the fence, Laura, will you?
I don't sit on the fence about safeguard. It's garbage. I don't sit on the fence. But we are still working really hard to try and help the church understand the importance of background checks, the importance of displaying information in chapels about abuse, the importance of good quality training, and really trying to help them have an understanding of the prevalence and the extent and the nature of abuse across the church. There's all this rubbish being spoken about 16 cases in 10 years, which we know is simply, well, we know of more than 16 cases. So actually, either we know 100 times more than the church know, or something's wrong with their figures. So to that, we are asking people to have a look at our abuse survey. It's completely anonymous. Have a look at it. We put the link out in the show notes for tonight again. We're just asking anyone to just share any stories of abuse, sexual, emotional, physical, domestic abuse. Just let us know your experiences, if it's safe and if it feels okay to do so, because it will help us drive home the message of what the church needs to be doing. And if you want us to contact you and look at what you can do to get justice, or look at support options for yourself, or just general advice, or to just let your story be heard, then drop us your name and how to contact you and we'll do so.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, follow the link in the show notes if you want to still participate in the survey, and everything will be kept confidential, obviously. Like and subscribe. Just a big thank you and shout out to the donors for making this possible and for the support and kindness that you show. So yeah, to the main event. Is Jane Christie.
Hey.
So we kind of had a brief sort of how we're going to do this, and we've decided to go through your life. This is your life for Jane Christie. So we're going to begin with Jane. Tell us about little Jane. Tell us about your childhood.
Okay, well, I was a child of divorced parents when it was a lot less common to everyone. All the other kids in my class had parents who were together. My parents had divorced when I was like 18 months old. So it was me and my brother. He was a matter of months old when they broke up, and I had been taught specifically that it was my job. This was my baby, and I had to look after this baby, which apparently was taught parenting at the time. Yeah, I think we both disagree. So I was the sort of interfering, gobby, really annoying older sister who he couldn't get peace from. My brother hangs out in the comments from time to time, so we may be hearing from him soon. What else? Yes, but unusually, and the who's gonna get the kids thing, which didn't really happen with us because it was like nobody really wanted to, everybody was they were really young people who got married, so they wanted to sort of live their own lives. But we stayed with my dad technically, but we were raised by my two very, very elderly aunts. Well, his two elderly aunts, my two great aunts, and they were completely devoted, very, very family orientated. They had never married, but they were also quirky, eccentric, were brought up in the sort of wartime generation where it would be completely normal just to give the kids a give the kids a whack. So yeah, they were devoted to us, but we were like nice kids, right? I really do think we were nice kids, but the mouths on us, the language that we were brought up using was like, if someone walked past our house, we as like 4 and 5 year olds were effing and swearing at them, telling them to get away from anywhere near our house. So we're really quite territorial. So yeah, that was our childhood. And because we've got these quite these elderly ladies who didn't go to church, religion was still, or not so much religion was part of their life. It's quite difficult to sort of explain. If you know the central belt of Scotland or Ireland, you kind of know what I mean by this, but religion is defined as which school you went to, which is what's your favorite color is enough to be able to tell you what your religious affiliation is. And which football team is your preferred one. So we had a mix of both Catholic and Protestant backgrounds, but they were really Protestant, very involved in the men of the family were involved in sort of the Orange Lodge and that type of thing back in their generations. So yeah, seeing all the parades was very normal for us. I think at one point they wanted to see if we wanted to march in the parade, which we were like, oh yeah, because it looked so cool. What else? So we were sent from a very young age, sent to go to Sunday school, which was very, I don't even know how it was practiced. There was sort of different types of religious, it was very intense. And for me, religion was the wages of sin is death. Bible thumping, very, very, it's all in this really stern face. It was male leadership that we would tend to see. There wasn't really a community, I don't really think, around it. But yeah, so I do remember from a really early age being really connected to prayer, and like I'm talking like 4 years old, and like later on. So yeah, I had this sort of faith, I would say, built in, but it's obviously come from somewhere. But yeah, that was what our childhood looked like.
So did you have connection with parents as well? Were mum and dad coming in and out of sort of
yes So dad was a daily visitor and mum would be she lived a lot further away, so we would kind of see her some weekends.
Do you know, so much of what we learn about the kind of parent we want to be comes from those really, really early experiences. So kind of even when you were little, what did you kind of take forward that you wanted to take into your parenting?
Oh my goodness. So my mother was glamorous and unavailable. Like I can still remember the way that she would smell, and the feeling of waiting for her to come and pick me up. I mean, that's sort of like the really uncomfortable stuff. But she had a traditional family. So when she remarried, she had a completely separate surname, a husband who was there, and they had a baby that my half brother, who I adored. I think both my brother and I did really adore him. That we would get to see from time to time. So I remember wanting to be available, and just to do things, just to sort of be present. I always had this sense of, everyone else has a normal family. Why can't our house look normal, be normal? So the other thing is, like, we couldn't really get to watch TV when we wanted to watch TV, because the house that we were raised in, these two eccentric, quirky old ladies, they were illegal backstreet bookies. So at all hours, we would have people knocking the door to put on a bet. I had no idea what the hell was happening, right? But like when you kind of figure it out, like, oh, that's what that was. I mean,
that's a Roald Dahl story, isn't it? These two eccentric aunts that are backyard bookies, a glamorous mother that sweeps in a cloud of perfume, and
Yeah.
really
Yeah. I used to really envy kids who could go to
So-
like ballet and dance class and it be kind of normal. That was, yeah.
So
I think that feeds into your later life, maybe.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
It really does. So when did you realise that they were illegal backstreet bookies, and that may be why you were? And was that anything to do with why you were so territorial about who was approaching the house?
No, that's just because we were little gits. No, so they were like this with everyone. So when you met them, they're the life and soul of the party, and they're really, I mean, funny and nosy, but also they would be vicious as soon as someone left, you know. So the bitchiness was how they communicated. There wasn't even necessarily any sort of harm in it, but there was this sort of world against them kind of attitude that so, you know, I mean, I'm joking earlier on, you know, nobody wanted us. We would be told that nobody wanted you. We were, you know, you're here because no one wanted you. But in some weird way, that was, they were sort of trying to say, because they couldn't say, well, we really wanted you. We loved you. You know, they were utterly devoted. And to, you know, I was raised calling them both mum until I realized it was really uncomfortable for my mum. Or I think I'd said it in front of her one time and realized I'd said a bad thing, and she was just really not happy and let me know that she wasn't happy. And so I had to, you know, you're not my mum. You're kind of, you're my mum. And that must have been so painful. So yeah, it was complicated and messy, which I think is the theme for most of nothing's really straightforward in my story. Yeah.
So school, teenage years.
Model student, or tried to be a model student. I couldn't get to study, so I think aspiration was kind of frowned on a little bit if I had any. So if I wanted to study, there would be a big massive thing about some kind of argument would happen, or who do you think you are, this kind of, you know, attempt to sort of kind of control, or just, it wasn't lovely. I at some point developed, at this time, obsessive compulsive tendencies, which may have been there even younger, but you know, so I remember school felt safe and I could do that, and I would sort of be, you know, you're getting praised and recognized, but there would be things I would have to, I would just sort of notice that I'm, you know, I need to have my knee bent before I can swallow, and it has to be above the other knee. So why am I starting to do that? All I know is if I do it, I feel a little bit more comfortable. And so that became, and because no one would really notice it, it became just a thing I did. And naturally that led into anxiety. I'd a panic attack before anybody was really talking about what panic attacks were. And I thought it was asthma. Just kind of waited for it to pass. So yeah, I think there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of longing to belong. I got to spend periods of time over the summer with my mum, which I loved, because, you know, that sense of normality. And I had a best friend whose family was in the church, and she was one of the other few people that I knew whose parents, she was a single parent family, so her mum raised her, and so her family members are Mormon, but she has this mother who's devoted, who she had things, she had toys, she had a pink room. I loved a pink room. And there was some amount of stability that I really longed for, that I could kind of see. She thought these were really cool people. This was her favorite uncle. So yeah, I feel that my childhood and teenage years were about sort of longing to belong and finding something. I skipped school once, and that was to help out at a kind of really geeky astronomy thing. so I wasn't like an edgy, misbehaving kid. And I realized very quickly how to, we don't speak to people like this. This is not appropriate. I wanted to be better than that.
Do you remember, if you could think of young Jane, what little Jane wanted to be, what she aspired to, what was there I want to be a rocket scientist, I want to, whatever it was, what was your plan or dreams?
So I had no idea, because the options were never, or any options or discussions were never presented to me. There was this, it's so funny that I'm just thinking about this now. What was presented was, when we win the pools, so that is like horse betting, right? So the equivalent of today, when you win the lottery. And so there would be a lot of sort of fantasy talking about, when this happens, but it would never be something that you made happen. When you get a really good job, and what would you like to happen? So I remember the first time I'd ever been asked to think about it was in a small group in my classroom, where the teacher had asked what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to, for some reason, Americanized education had been the only thing that had been presented to me. So Americans go to college, right? And then, but then there's university. So I don't know how they fit. So my assumption was, you go to college, then you go to university. I knew I wanted to do that. And the teacher was like, well, what is it that you would like to study? And I had no idea. So she had suggested journalism, and that's a thing that kind of stuck out a little bit. So, but I mean, I didn't necessarily want it, but I knew I liked words and worlds and escaping into my own head. Yeah.
So what message were you getting about your role as a girl and as a woman in society and in the world?
Super traditional, very conservative. So my dad would, when he was visiting, he would be outside fixing up cars, repairing them for people, or tinkering. My brother would get to go out and help fix cars, and would get some money, get some. We didn't really get pocket money, but he would get a little something for helping with that. My job was to make the tea. And I was told it was you're not going to go outside. This is a girls make the tea, girls stay in the house. Everyone, my brother loved that, you little git, if you're watching. I remember having my first experience, because my dad was, tea obsessed. He could drink it all day. And I remember, I'm going to go and make tea today. I'm going to try and do this. And I made it. I was so pleased to present it to him. And that was my job.
And at that time, were you kind of discontent? You accepted that at that time?
No, I was furious. Yeah, I was furious.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different time, but those roles still fall through, don't they? I'm just reflecting on the fact that you're talking about your anxiety and your coping strategies, the OCD. But then at the same time, looking for that stability and looking for the structure of a normal, inverted commas, family setup. I just find it interesting. You found ways to cope. Do you know what I mean? You found ways to give yourself a little bit of coping and stability in there. But
So teenage years, then, thinking about kind of your teenage, you're thinking about what to do when you leave school. Boyfriends, girlfriends, what was happening?
Just wasn't really. I was pretty busy studying. I was really close with my friends. Oh my goodness, I was such a geek. I used to go to Star Trek conventions. That was my thing. I used to love dressing up. I still do cosplay, just FYI. I think because my brother was experiencing the same thing. He had this love of football, and I remember there was a tryout that he really, really wanted to be able to go to, and just wasn't even facilities, not even conversations around it. Just that he couldn't attend this thing because what dad needed was way more important. And I don't know, even know, maybe that might have been true, but certainly there was no expectation or support to improve or to, what is our life going to look like after this? It was just, but then I don't think anyone had asked any of them either, if that makes sense.
No, I remember
yeah.
asking my mum when she was in her probably 40s, 50s, and making her cry, asking her, what did you want to be when you left school? And she teared up and she said, you know what? No one ever asked me. No one ever asked me. I never thought about it because no one ever asked me. It was just, you're going to go and get a job. You're going to go at 15. And she did. She left school at 15, went and got a job in a factory and worked her way up because she was a clever lady. But, that's the sort of thing. I think it's interesting you talk about your aunties being bookies and then the way that life can change is if you win the pools. So it's always by luck and happenstance, not because of anything you have made happen of your own sort of hard work.
And that's where I think magical thinking is a kind of thread that does culturally it does tend to happen. So like when we talk about Joseph Smith and the magical thinking and the treasure digging, some things were just super normal. No one really thinks that no one really thinks of the mythology or Scottish mythology of being literal, but the assumption is it just happens. So even today, I would never dream of putting shoes on a table because that is just something that you would never do because you would get battered. So it's just really normal, and we're not necessarily thinking through to what the consequences are. The other, I think, thing that is really formative at this time is I am unhappy because I do have aspirations and I read voraciously. I know there is something that is not this that I want, and I'm not necessarily sure how to put that into words yet. Just the sense of there is, and I think it's stability. What I'm looking for is stability. But my dad would say that this is the time when I completely just turned into a monster. I think a lot of parents struggle with the teenage years. Which really I still find really offensive, simply because it was the time of my life where I stopped being as compliant. So if I was this is. It's so difficult when, like I say, these are women who loved me. And this is why the safeguarding thing is just, it's so messy and complicated, and because people are human behind it, right? I would get a call from a friend, and as we're having a phone call, obviously at this time, phones are in a fairly public place in the house. So you're in the corner, you're having a call, maybe your friend wants to do something or just have a chat. And in the background, I have two elderly women, grown-ass women, who are screaming, trigger warning for language here, who is that? What is she wanting? This is, that, like, the worst type of thing you would ever say to children. And they would scream that down the phone to the point where parents were like, what do we do about this? Is Jane okay? It was just the way they used to talk, and it was horrible. I think they were feeling some sense of regret or bitterness or whatever.
Controlling it, the situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that, so I thought, and it was when it wasn't me, because I was used to being spoken to like that. My brother was used to being spoken to like that. You're now speaking to my friends, and I feel this sense of embarrassment and humiliation because I know it's not okay. So as I'm expressing this is not okay, I have a dad who's, and this is again just where it so relates to my Mormonism. I've got a dad who's using the phrase over and over again while I'm in his arms: you've just got to play the game. You've just got to play the game. Because he knows what they're like. And I didn't ever think, what, this isn't a game to me. This is, you're going to go and leave, and this is what I'm living with, and I need you to help me. I remember asking my mum if I need, like, what would you do if I asked if I could come and live with you? And she's like, well, I would cross that bridge when I came to it. She didn't have the capability to do that either. So no one was going to come and fix it for me. So I kind of retreated a little bit and would try and spend as much time out of the house as possible. I would go and hang around the local market, which wasn't super healthy. There was a lot of predatory behaviour around there. I would go to a pub. My mum used to take me out to pubs when I'd visit, so it became something that I was quite comfortable to do from a very young age, like 14. Not to be drinking, just to be out the house, because I wasn't drinking. I didn't. And then really, really interestingly, that's the time when the missionaries are sort of around and coming into my life, and I want to be taught. It was totally forbidden until I think the missionaries suggested maybe we could get in touch when you're 16. So I think that was a bit of a goal. If there is a way to make someone want to join a church, tell them that they're not allowed to join it. Then that's, you know, so yeah. So I have this moment where I make the decision to be baptized. You know how it goes. You have the missionary discussions. You know, everything that's been presented sounded wonderful and stable. The messaging around strengthening the family that I had, and not it was aspirational, but it was about I really liked that. You know, it was about trying to sort of preserve the relationship. I was in a situation where I had to either not go to church or and keep in mind, when I'm going to church, I'm also, like I mentioned pubs, I'm going to hang out at astronomy club and the library. These are like, I am just this, as far as I'm aware, a dream come true kid. And I don't really get what the problem is, but no one's going to help me. Church seemed to have this ability that I was looking for, and I wasn't allowed to do that. So one of the moments in my life that is going to happen several times again is this feeling of either being at a crossroads or being on a cliff. And if I jump, I know this is going to hurt. And I know the easiest thing to do right now is to stay and do what it is that you are telling me I need to do. But I'm not wired that way. And I can I know exactly what that feeling feels like. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. So I got to stay with a friend for a few months. I declared myself homeless. I applied for my own child benefit. I got my own child benefit. I was going to high school living on the floor of a friend's bedroom, and they were really, really angry with me because I joined the church. That was the first time I remember my dad not speaking to me. So yeah.
How old were you at the time?
16.
And what was it about the church that was I know you talked about belonging and stability. What was it about the church that really drew you in at that time?
That it was building on things I already found to connect with. I found I could connect through lots of things, but I remember listening to the soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar and being so impacted by a couple of just the idea of the pain that the depiction of Jesus is going through. So I related a lot. I had friends who had faith, and it was just it was just part of the air that I breathed. That was just the culture that I was in. But church kicked that up a notch to not just that there is a God, but he loves me specifically, and that I have this place in the world, and that I have something that only I can contribute, that there was something that was better than this, and there will be something that is better than this, and I can aspire and I can love. I don't know why, for such a messy family, the messaging that families can be together forever was something that I just really wanted. because it, you know, they weren't saying only this kind of family can be together forever. I didn't want that forever, but somehow it was going to be better. So I love the divine identity.
Yeah.
I loved the young women values. The choice and accountability part was just brilliant for me. I still love that today. Choice and accountability. Testimony meetings were extremely powerful for me. That was my nuclear. And I still have this tendency to, you know, the dynamic of the group thinking and the group reinforcement. I feel like that really connected with me.
So did you do personal progress?
Well, I started, but obviously being homeless and having nowhere to go, I didn't stay in church that long at that point. I meet Charlie at a pub through, like, it was another one of the young women who had also hung out in pubs, who was pretty cool and badass. She introduced us, and so pretty soon I'm pregnant. Didn't have healthy messaging around responsibility around sex ever given to me, just the assumption that I would inevitably, this is what I'm for. So lots of really unhealthy, really not healthy behaviors that I would exhibit. But Charlie, my husband, still, he's just always been really stable and wonderful. His family, I've always felt I've had to work so hard to try to be the highest version of myself, who even is the highest version of myself. His family, it's just innate goodness. So for them to take someone in to live with them that they hardly knew, who pretty soon is pregnant. I mean, I was a baby at this point. I looked like a child.
How old were you?
17.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all happening that quickly. 17, and I think I get pregnant. So the first pregnancy is a miscarriage. I'm pregnant with my oldest son, and so I think I had him when I was 18. We got married when he was 4 months old. We moved into our first house, which was a dump. We just, but that was, I think, the dream. Except I've now also been taught this idea of, it's not even repentance, this idea of shame. And I think actually I joined the church with the idea of shame because I'd already, as a 15-year-old, I'd already had sex, and it, I didn't feel worthiness was a bit of a flashpoint for me. So I've got this family. I still have no aspirations really, or I've not got the opportunity to think about them because we're just surviving at this point. He was working so hard to study to be an architect, and I wanted to go back to church, but I was super far away from church. Kind of ended up making it happen. We moved closer to the area. We were there, so I was in church. I remember taking Kyle to the Temple Open House in Preston that had just been announced. So we went round that.
That 1996,
He was born in 1996. So 1998 was we're walking around for the open house, and all of the kids on the bus are singing "I Love to See the Temple." And even though this was going to be the first time I'd ever seen the temple, that was it. I was hooked. It was just all of these babies and their families who are singing, but this longing to be in a place and the reverence, and people are telling me how beautiful and reverent it's going to be. I don't know if it ever matched up to what people kept telling me it was going to be, but it certainly was lovely. Turned out I was pregnant with Ronan, so we have our second child fairly quickly, and I am established, and I'm in Mormonism. The problem is, and it's really great that my husband and I, we've had so many conversations about about the things that we've been through. So we're able to talk about it. He would drink. Never anything sort of violent or anything like that, but he just wasn't a very nice person when he had a drink. I feel like I had been bred in the young women's program and going to church, and at this point I've got a calling in Relief Society. I'm a counsellor in Relief Society, and I'm being bred to be compliant. I am being bred to, this is the priesthood holder, even if he doesn't hold the priesthood yet. This is how it should look.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, I was a doormat. Yeah.
But you gave away that power, even though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because the people who have had that power to make decisions over my life have wielded it so well up until that point. But I remember the very first time I went out on my own, having had a baby, and I remember I wasn't asked to do it, but I remember coming running home through the door to say, "Look, I'm home. I didn't take too long. Isn't this great? Because I don't want to inconvenience you." So I was trying to make this little paradise, and the pressure of it just got so much that for the millennium was happening. That's when I thought, you know what, screw it, I'm going to have a drink. I am just tired. The impact on our marriage at the time, again, this coming to a crossroads, am I going to jump and do the hard thing? So I had started going to college, to drama school, and I was my own entity. And you think I'm funny? You guys want to hang out with me because that had never really happened for me before like that. I sort of fell into friend groups before, whereas now we have this shared interest, and
it's something you're good at, and people appreciate you for something you can do.
Well, and I could express these parts of myself. I could be bad. I could be really not nice, and it was fine. And I would treat people very, very badly. Oh, it was great. The power that I was able to feel was very, very heady. I treated people like crap, and it was really entertaining. But I'd never had that kind of power before. So church had stopped. My marriage was over. We were separated for, it must have been about maybe almost 2 years.
Wow.
I graduated, but because I didn't have it, so I'm homeless again, and trying to make college work. It's not sustainable. I also get pregnant. So this is my youngest son. I was convinced that I was going to have a termination because this was awful. I started to get depressed, and I was just so alone. I'd gone from feeling this sense of community, and then this sense of, I can have this community and be really, really me. But it's all just gone. It's all just disappeared. But anyway, so I did it. My husband, Charlie, we got back together. He never, ever gave up on me. And I hated that. I hated it. But he wasn't going anywhere, and he was the stability. And he genuinely does care. He really is the rock in our family's life. I remember being really anxious and depressed after Logan was born, but nothing super dramatic. And then my oldest son, he's also exhibiting some signs of anxiety. So this was around about the time where things would be in the newspapers about, the wars are going to kick off, what's happening in Iraq. His teacher said the most ridiculous thing, that, yeah, the world will end and you're all going to die and go to hell. Oh, just kidding. God. I'm sure it'll be heaven. And how funny was that? So Kyle was just so traumatized. But just this sense of impending doom in life. Now, he thinks the world is going to end.
Or church teacher?
Yeah, no, that was a school teacher because there was no church in our lives at this point, right? Yeah, just God bless them, whatever they were going through that day. But you have this little boy who's seeing the world going to end, this threat to the world, when he has parents who are back together, now a new sibling, and also he has a brother. So his younger brother has special needs. And we had to go through all of that kind of process of getting our heads around what that looked like. He has this sense of responsibility towards his brother. If your family is under attack or your own stability is under attack, and for him, it was sort of globalizing what he was really feeling like on the inside.
Yeah.
And we did go and get some therapy. He didn't need a lot. He's a very sort of brush it off kind of person. But what I felt like was really missing was faith. I felt like because he didn't have something higher to draw on, I felt like that was the missing thing in his life. And of course, the missionaries are exactly who teach that. So I'm someone who's smoking, drinking. I've got these 3 kids. I'm now running my own business, teaching drama. Life is okay. Our marriage broke up again for a little while. So I think in total we had been, if you added it all up, it would be around about 3 years Charlie and I had been separated. But I felt like the missionaries were what Kyle really needed. And I knew that if I asked the missionaries, do you want to come and teach Kyle? I knew what was going to happen with me. So I was totally prepared and braced for it. Coincidentally, just a few days later, I happened to see them in the town centre, which is quite unusual at the time because they didn't really tend to hang around there. To their surprise, I make an appointment. I was really unreliable. I wouldn't answer the phone and things because I knew it was going to happen. Eventually, we got there. I did the quit smoking program that they taught to me. I had one tiny craving one time. It was like a dream, even though I'd been smoking for like about maybe 5 years by this point. And yeah, so back to church we went. Kyle had developed a belief in the church teachings. I have always been welcomed into church with open arms. Everyone has always been, it's always felt like home. And so it was just like walking back in to where I had grown up. Yeah, so that's how I ended up. I've been back at church since that time.
So what sort of age were you at that point, Jane? I'm trying to sort of gauge how old you were before.
I have no bloody clue. So Logan, so I can tell you, so Logan is now, he's almost 18. Logan was 3 when I started going back to church. So yeah.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a biggie, isn't it? I
15 years ago.
I think it's interesting.
So how was...
I think we're talking over each other. Is there a delay?
Right, Sarah, are you with us? Okay, we'll just wait on your signal settling back down. Ruth, do you wanna go in the meantime?
I was just going to say, I found it really interesting. You're saying how much you kind of pushed people away, including Charlie, at different points, and almost your friends from college tested them by being awful to them. Did they really want me? Did they not really want me? And I feel like sometimes that can happen. I don't know. What do you think? If you've had a bit of a disruptive childhood, it's that feeling of, I'm going to push you away because people reject me. So I'm going to push until you reject me because that's what I know you're going to do. And I'm in control of that dynamic then if I'm if I'm the one that's doing the shoving rather than waiting for you to walk away?
So I think, yeah. But the reality was, I think, certainly in my marriage, it was not okay. Like it was mostly in relation to his behavior and me sort of, I'm not here for this. This is not what I want for my life. So, when we got back together, there had been massive boundaries around, okay, I don't want to, if you're going to have a drink, then you don't come home, you spend the night in a hotel. I don't care what that needs to look like. Just the tone, anger management. Like I say, it'd never ever been directed, but it was enough that I found it really, really traumatic. And at college, my friend group are kind of stable, we're kind of stable. We got on really, really well. What I would do was I would be pushing other people. So if it's relationships with other men or women, that's where I would feel the real control. Like, I can treat you really, really badly and you're just going to take it. Yeah. And I didn't regret it at all. I didn't regret it.
It's sort of being able to, it's not nice, but it's being able to use power when you haven't had an awful lot of control in your life, I guess.
Yeah.
Point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's you sort of, I think everyone goes through that period of looking back at themselves and thinking, yeah, I wasn't particularly nice in that moment, in that time period. It's just owning yourself, warts and all. And that's what I love about you, Jane, that you will just go, that's who I was, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, maybe I wasn't that awful. Maybe I just have the standard of what awful is, and I had a tremendous amount of boundaries, and it's okay for to see certain relationships as disposable, or for them to exist only in my terms. Because when I go back to church at that point, I do have a sense that there is a relinquishing of either my power or something, and I saw that as an inevitability. That was something I was okay with. Sara, you were going to ask a question before we lost you.
We lost you.
Yeah, no, that's okay, because I think the conversation's moved on a bit. So carry on. Carry on. Sorry.
So you're back at church. Family seems to have come back together. You've got challenges, and you've got special needs, got children to look after, and all of life things happening to you. Where does it take you into your sort of later 20s, 30s?
Sara, you look like you're going to ask something.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a question. How was it for you stepping into the church space with Ronan, with the special needs that Ronan had, and the very reverent sacrament meetings? You know what I will mean by that? Kids sit quiet, they're doing the bit. The primary that is very formalised and very taught, and children are expected to fit into the box and kind of get on with it, and they don't have square pegs in round holes because children are meant to be following the plan. How was all that stepping into that space with Ronan?
At first, absolutely fantastic, because he was a primary child, and so the structure, the particular primary president that we had at that time, I know there were some parents who felt, she's far too strict. The kids are coming to primary and they just want to be able to have a nice experience. They shouldn't have to sit like robots. The structure, even though Ronan just couldn't sit like a robot anyway, the structure was so, you knew what to expect, and he knew very quickly and clearly what the rules were. So although his behavior, so I think, what was it he used to do? It wasn't spitting, it was something kind of gross, whatever kind of gross thing he was doing at the time. She was sort of trying to get him to stop doing that. And so Ronan is a bit of a Ronan is immediately being picked up on as he's perfected. He doesn't he doesn't need here. We have to meet his standard. Immediately what's being taught, other people would sort of tell me, or some of the young women would tell me, my parents were saying that you have to be really righteous to be trusted with a spirit like Ronan's, which is awful, because
I was just going to ask, what was that like, being told your son was perfect and he didn't need to be here and he just had to come here to get a body, but he didn't need to be tested and his place was assured in the celestial kingdom? What was that like?
Interestingly, right, it's a message that I think everyone should have, because he is perfect and he doesn't need to be tested, and he's absolutely perfect. However, so the pressure on me to be as good as Ronan
puts you on a pedestal, doesn't it?
It does. But also,
and the pressure on the other children. Because the other children aren't being given that message.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a thing. But also that pressure kind of already is there, because I'm expected to be that, because Charlie's going to come into the church. No, it's in my patriarchal blessing. Charlie is going to come into the church. I'm going to be sealed in the temple too. And what else? Like I say, structure is really, really good and really helpful. And it was helpful for all of the kids. But then whenever you move into non-structured time, there wasn't a place for Ronan in church. So, how we are particularly good at reverence in our ward. It's really, really good. But once someone has finished giving a talk, he would give them a round of applause, which was lovely. Everyone loved that. And if you didn't get one, you knew your talk sucked. It was, that was really bad. The hymns, he would be like banging along to the hymns. So Ronan would hurt himself. He would bite his arm. So he had started already displaying extreme anxiety, especially around transitions and leaving places. We would sing, I think of his hands pierced and bleeding to pay the debt. And everyone is, looking very serious and very traumatized. Ronan is experiencing pure joy, and he's really singing that, and he's holding up his hand because he thinks of his hands pierced and bleeding to pay the debt. He's connecting in this beautiful way. So there's lots of lovely things about it, but also if he doesn't need to be there, then you don't have to provide for him. You don't have to provide a space for him. And I'm so aware that there's other places in the church that are able to do that. We are a tiny, tiny ward. And who is going to do that? I would get really frustrated and sort of say, well, no one's actually asked what Ronan's condition is in order to meet his needs. So young men it tends to be very, very unstructured. By the time we're in young men, Ronan just couldn't do it anymore. So he went from just really struggling to leave a church building. He'd be like that in the supermarket, to be fair. To this is just too hard. I'm just not going to put you through it anymore. And that was horrible. That was really horrible. Kyle was getting lots of messages about perfectionism and knew that it was a load of crap. He could see what it looks like when people tell leaders exactly what they want to hear and how much praise you would get for that. Our church leaders promised that EFY would be the very, very thing to help his testimony. He was going to love it. He was going to have all of these experiences. He hated it. But it's his fault for not putting enough in. It's just not in his personality. He could feel the forced experiences or the contrived experience. You're supposed to feel this elevation emotion. So as you get off the bus, we're all going to be partying and we're all going to be, like this music is playing in the background. It's going to be very, very high energy. And Kyle's just like,
I've got to say,
bugger off.
I've had that same experience. They just saw through the noise and kind of went, this is false, and this is trying to get a particular reaction out of me. and anything that needs to use all of this to have a spiritual experience, is that really a spiritual experience?
Yeah.
There's some great comments going on, but I can't make the comments go live. So my severely autistic son would start growling loudly when he wanted a speaker to finish.
How good is
Brilliant.
that?
Yeah.
It's harsh criticism, but sometimes some people need it, don't they?
Well, what can you say? You know,
I remember a little girl a young woman in our ward. She was a young woman at this age. She was probably about 18, 19. She had Down syndrome, and she was giving a talk in sacrament meeting, and all of a sudden from the stand she shouted, "Wake up, Dad!" Which was great. It was just fabulous.
Well, because we've got Ronan, we've got the elevation emotion family, so it's very, very easy. I remember we sang a child's prayer together, and you know, some of the primary were involved in that, and Ronan gave a primary talk. The beauty of primary is that for Ronan was that there were these opportunities for him to express and to succeed. That needs to happen with structure. Like I say, I know there's lots of really good examples of things being handled well, but certainly it's, you know, he's been forgotten in so many ways by the church program. He was considered not eligible for baptism. The bishop at the time, though, did and basically he called it an exercise. So he had
exorcism. What?
Because there isn't really a word for it, and I've never heard of anyone doing it. But this amazing bishop, who felt like, well, Ronan wants to be like all of the other children, and he really wants to have this. So he had a baptism, which we had to be very clear is not a baptism, and so they went into the font, and the words were along the lines of, having authority of the bishop, I say unto you, be clean. And he was submerged, and it was really, really powerful. The few people that were there in attendance, it was really, really powerful. But he couldn't be a child of records because we had come back to church too late. He hadn't been blessed in time, so he doesn't exist in the church records.
You know, I just have such a problem with them deciding he didn't need baptism. It's like, hang on a minute. It doesn't say in scripture, can you make a decision on who needs baptism and who doesn't? But hey ho, you know.
How did Charlie feel about your involvement with church, the boys' involvement with church? Where was he sitting in that space?
He didn't want Kyle to get baptized till he was older. But ultimately, you know, the stubbornness of us, it was something that Kyle really, really wanted. He has always known that this is just what my life looks like. As much as there have been times when I haven't been at church, this was what you signed up for when you met me, so this is what we're doing. And he has been exceptional. I mean, even when he could sort of see crap, he would never mock or put, that's not true. He would rip. Charlie thinks he's funny, right? This is the thing. He really thinks he's funny. So the stuff he would do would be, do you know what? I'll come back to it. I'll give examples shortly. But yes, me with Charlie in a room full of other church members, I would be sweating bullets, I'm telling you, because of the kind of thing he might come out with. Logan had a really good church experience. He was really supported, but he is getting woken up by a brother in the middle of the night who is, gonna, I need something to hurt. I just need to lash out. And so he had a brother who was lashing out. Everyone would wake up crying, and we're trying to settle everyone back down. He's keeping an eye on his brother, feeling responsible for his brother. He's struggling to just not pay attention in school, but he's struggling to relate to the worries that other people have. So he would hear like friends niggling with each other, and he's like, I can't deal with this. I don't want to hear about it. So he's going to church and being taught, you have to be better. You have to be worthy to hold the priesthood. It's going to be baptism time now. So this, and it was super frustrating for me because he completed his faith in God book so early. nobody would make time to interview him about it. No one would. He still hasn't received, like, from 8 any recognition or anything like that he did. But yeah, when it came to his baptism, we had a very dear family so this is the sort of important context as well to me coming back to church, because I knew this is what we're doing, this kind of crossroad moment. I went back under conditions. So the first week I'd attended, I'm wondering, where is everyone? Like, why have they all gone? And I remember asking, and I was like, no, everyone's here. In the time I've been gone, I don't know who you're not noticing, but there's been a membership drop off massively. Have they moved? Has something happened?
Yeah.
They've just left the church. And so I really quickly become aware of this, that people leave the church statistically in this area. My kids are going to leave the church. There's no way a teenager in this area is going to make it. And when I say make it, I don't mean celestial make it. I mean attendance. Statistically, I'm not going to in a part member family. So all of the things that you teach every Sunday, all of the things that you study, all of the answers that you give, they haven't worked for you. What if I need something more, something different? So that was the conditions that I went back to church under. I was, the internet was still fairly young. So I had developed a friendship with this little group of people online. For anybody who can remember that far back, Yahoo used to do like this answer section where people would ask questions, and it kind of was a little bit like maybe the Reddit of the day. Yeah. So there was a religion and spirituality section, and a bunch of Mormons. We all meet and we're answering these questions. So it's a bit like baby apologetics. And I would hang out with those guys, learning, studying stuff. And in the background, we all connected, and we're sharing what's going on in our lives, what our challenges are, what thing it is that we are answering, and that always made me uncomfortable. So okay, I think I understand that a bit better now. So really early on, we're talking about the Mount Meadows massacre. We're talking about the Book of Mormon accounts. So I'm just super aware that they've happened, and I've already had to change the paradigm so often in my life that changing a paradigm is very, very easy. Okay, there's multiple accounts. What does that actually mean for me? The other thing is that because I've had this background with the Church of Scotland and the different religious experiences I've had within faith groups here, we haven't ever taught perfect prophets, or that hasn't been what's presented to me from the Bible. So if there's stuff going on with Joseph Smith's account, that it just hadn't been anything that was a super cause for concern with me, because if there is a lie there, it's just not a big deal or it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a deal breaker, I think, for me.
I find that really interesting as a convert, because that for me was a deal breaker, that the missionaries had taught me this, and I trusted them to tell me the truth, and I trusted the church to tell me the truth. They can tell me whatever. I would have taken what they told me on face value.
Yeah.
It's in the correlated materials. It's in all my manuals that I'm learning from. I soaked up. I'm a big reader. I soaked up I remember being shown the library in the chapel the first time, and being told you can help yourself to any of these new eras. Being like, really? Yeah, just bring them back next week, and just absorbing it, loving it. But just, when I did find out about more than one First Vision account, Joseph Smith actually being polygamous, Joseph Smith rocking a hat, I just felt just grief for being deceived. So I find it really interesting that you were just like, nah, I can.
Well, see, I think I know why. And it's all down to arrogance. So I've come back and I'm reading voraciously. Members of the ward are loaning me their books. They are so supportive and amazing. But I'm going through the library, going through all of the correlated materials. What's all the stuff I missed when I left? All of you guys who get to do institute classes and all of these kind of things, gimme.
Yeah.
So I'm reading the Book of Mormon constantly. I'm studying from this. So I'm getting everything that's correlated, starting with now and going back further and further. And you can see, you can see that things have looked different. I mean, that was obvious. But because there's apologetics that's happening at the exact same time, it reminds me almost of the feeling that we would get when we were first being taught about the gospel. Why doesn't everyone know about this? Why doesn't everyone believe we have this? And when you go to the temple, you are getting super secret knowledge. And when you know something that other people don't know, that's a kind of powerful feeling. So it would sort of begin with, you're going to church classes, having maybe been back in church for a matter of months. You're not having to work hard to pick everything up because you've already studied all of this anyway, and all of the context and supporting materials back for years and years. And how do I know more about this than you? Oh, well, that's because I'm super Mormon, right? Because I'm really, really studying all this stuff. But then there's this extra layer that when you peel it back, oh, polygamy, okay, and how you guys are talking about it is very different to the multi-level nuanced discussions about how women are experiencing it. So I think there were two things. Both, I feel really good that I know more than you. That sounds so bad, but I think there's part of me that was thinking that. There's also the part of me who is hearing it from so many different perspectives, and I'm seeing so much nuance. Lindsay Hanson Park then becomes part of my story. She's doing Year of Polygamy, where she's talking about how complicated and messy it is, and that gives me permission to be messy and complicated. And I'm like, yeah, I'm there for that. Those were the kind of leaders I was looking for. So even when it comes to one of my favorite things about Mormonism that I had just been so excited about, that I still get that today to a certain extent in a more broken-hearted way. We have prophets. We have a prophet. We have someone who can tell you what God's thinking. That is incredible. What is he saying? Turns out not very much. Not very much. But that idea that someone could that we can do that as a people. So if there's messiness there, I can be okay with that. I can really be okay with your humanity. What I can't be okay with is you using your humanity as an excuse for ballsing up. But anyway, so yeah, this super secret other levels of knowledge, I think, was quite, and I think that's why apologetics is really tempting. It feels quite safe because you're reinforcing, and you have a community who are reinforcing those beliefs and helping you to work out ways that you can. Mental gymnastics can be fun, and it is. We are designed as humans to experience cognitive dissonance. So the ways in which I have experienced cognitive dissonance have been more stimulating. Using the gymnastics analogy, feeling like you're being stretched, feeling like you're being given both, given shade. What does this mean? Is this all good? Thomas B. Marsh in the milk strippings was one of the first times I remember saying, that there is so much more to that story, and this is doing this really good, man. Such a disservice. Nobody knows what you're talking about.
No, they don't. So did you ever look at the history of apologists, though, and kind of go, that could be me, that could happen to me, that could be me that gets kicked to the curb for just pushing and questioning or challenging the narrative? Because that's the way that apologists seem to go, that they're the flavour of the month. The church is saying, oh, this is great, somebody's finding out stuff and finding a way to be okay with it, and then the next thing no, we don't like your way of retelling our history, you're out?
Yeah. Well, we learn so quickly about what we can talk about and what we can't talk about. So one of the early books that I had been given was Mormon doctrine. And there's some delightful stuff. Now, it's such a ridiculous thing. Of all of the things I could pull out of Mormon doctrine, that is going to be this. Something along the lines of like word of wisdom stuff. But if you decide to become vegetarian, you're rejecting God's good gifts, and that is a step away from apostasy. And I remember just being like,
I'm your lettuce sandwich ladies.
Right? Yeah. So the person who loaned me this book, we were tidying up in church. We were doing something because also, you know, like I'm super involved. I'm doing everything I can. This is my life. I'm having a conversation. Oh, so in that book, you know, the part where it says this, and I'm kind of chuckling, and she's like, oh, no, wait, you know that the ex-primary president, you know that she's a vegetarian, don't you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a vegetarian too. But just so quickly, it's like, no, we don't talk about that. We don't. And it wasn't that we were talking about the subject. We were talking about, no, we don't talk about that. And so now I think if I'd have pushed her, we could have probably had a really interesting conversation, but we're going too close here.
Yeah.
Trying too close to the sun.
Yeah. So just the knowledge, the knowledge and the things I was learning about the experience was for me. Yes, I'm hearing about the September 6th. I'm hearing about and also let's just say apologists are dicks. They were not nice people. They were being horrible to other people. This is why I call it baby apologetics, because I wasn't in that sort of sphere or circle. So as I'm learning all of this stuff and feeling like this is just something for me, I haven't got that outlet. So, you know, I don't have a husband who is, you know, involved in the church to be able to talk things through. The group that I had met online in Baby Apologetics, they were my people. So if there was something, one of the things I was taught in the ward, I'm not allowed to teach my son about the priesthood. That's the priesthood's job to teach him about the priesthood. And, you know, no, I don't think so. Priesthood's part of the gospel, but those are the types of things. So I would be able to take that and say, look, I know that's not true. And I would push on it too. You know, that went to a bishop who gave a kind of, you know, yes, it is your job, but also it's our job too. And yeah, but also this is someone who's telling adult women this, and we believe him, you know. So you have someone giving really, really bad information and advice, and also you're not there to teach my kid. I am. You're not accountable. I am. So yeah, as all of this knowledge and my kids are hating their experience, as pressure is building, I've got a lot of callings I'm juggling. The I'm a Mormon campaign is about to happen. People are starting to have conversations about, mostly it would be around mental health or struggling at church or feeling anxious at church. Mostly that would be out in the foyer. Mostly it was women. Very, very often it was centered in LGBTQ issues, because, you know, things were starting to happen in the ward. That was sacred spaces were happening out there. And so people who were like, oh, there's this thing. Did you know this thing? And I'm like, I have people welcome into this space because it is growing and it's exciting and it is dynamic and you're going to learn so much. It is god awful scary. It can lead to serious, you know, struggles in your life from a mental health point of view, because you're going to have to do a lot of work to figure out what your life is going to look like when you know all of this stuff. I don't know if this is going to take you out of the church or keep you in it, but what I do know is that this is a safe you know, I'm a safe person. You can talk to me about this anytime you like. Oh, every one of them has left. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
And that's what we see, isn't it, over and over again?
Yeah.
All these people.
Is it me? Do you think it was me? Was I the drama? Oh.
Well, Jane, we will have to talk about that. I think you have to pick up on, was it? Yeah. So how were you feeling about your kids kind of not getting it, not wanting church wasn't the epicenter of their lives? Was that okay? Was that difficult?
I was disappointed because I wanted them to want it, but I knew who they were. I have massive regrets. So Kyle really wanted to be playing rugby. It was on a Sunday and I didn't let him. If I had that to do again. So I didn't make that mistake with Logan. If that's something that he wanted to do, yeah, he's in charge of his own faith and spirituality. But yeah, I was disappointed. But nobody's kids are in the church. Nobody's. And now I'm super proud because you could see things that I didn't see. I didn't hear him in what he was trying to tell me. I didn't, you know, I had these, well, you know, the advice we would normally give, we need to focus on what we're doing and not what other people are doing. I wasn't hearing that you were trying to tell me really serious things. Some of it, around safeguarding, some of it regarding what was important to you and not what was important to me. My brother has asked a question, and I don't know. You'll need to ask more.
He's asked, how did the bus pictures on the bus come about?
I don't know.
How did you get into that? I think he's talking about the Book of Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
He's talking about the I'm a Mormon campaign. And
Oh,
I think he's talking about your picture
that
and your family. And I'm interested in what your family thought about you all being part of that. You see, I know if I'd said to my teenagers, we're going to do I'm a Mormon, my teenagers would have run a mile and said there is no way on this earth we are doing that.
They did.
And yet yours,
I made them.
Okay.
Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe I made them a little bit. No, they just see, because they're good. And if there's something that's important to me, it becomes important to them. And I just, even though it is not what any of them wanted to do, I think Logan was quite happy because Logan's just a happy little guy anyway. We were literally sitting, having some dinner on a Sunday when I think we just missed the call, but my husband does this fantastic impression of it. I'll have to get him to do a TikTok of it one day, where a call and the guy says, "This is from church headquarters. We were wondering if you would be interested in doing an I'm a Mormon video where we would come and film you and your family. If you might be interested, can you please give us a call back here?" And he provided the number. And immediately my husband's like, now we are Scottish. So such a cliche. He's like, "I'm not calling Salt Lake City. I don't think so. You can, if you want me to be in your video, you can call me, pal." Yeah. So he's immediately he started ripping the piss. By the way, it was something chronic. He, like I say, he does full blown impressions of this, but they asked us to do it. They asked if they could come and film what our family would look like. Charlie's like, as long as it doesn't involve me. So
you put him on the side of a bus.
He just ended up kind of going along with what happened on that day. Now, the night before, so the film crew, the directors, everyone who had anything to do with the project were amazing. They were really, really good, nice guys. But the night before, the film crew arrive, and we're doing this graduation thing for a couple of young women who are moving out, because I'd just been released from Young Women not long before. So we were doing this kind of final thing, and they were coming over to visit just as Charlie's getting the hell out of Dodge to go to the pub because it's too much Mormon. So it's young women, their mothers and some people from the Relief Society presidency. And Charlie opens the door to this film crew and says, "Come in and meet all of my wives." And I'm like, "Charlie, you promised you wouldn't. And they're like, "We're going to get some good stuff here. This is going to be fantastic." So what did they? Yeah, so we went for a walk and they filmed it. They filmed me doing a class with some of the kids. It went live on the internet, and it was the filming was also a bit just bizarre. You're walking with a film crew in front of you. While I'm doing the end part, I'm Jane and I'm a Mormon. Some little old lady had walked up to Charlie and had said, "Excuse me, could you just, why are they filming? Do you know what they're doing?" And Charlie's like, "Yeah, don't tell anyone, but we've just won the lottery." And immediately this little old lady's like, "Oh, they've just won the lottery." So yeah, Charlie's like, "Right, kids, we're leaving." So we had fun. They were really nice. Then they get in touch to say there's going to be the Easter campaign, which was coinciding. So this is 10 years ago this month. Right, that's it. So the Book of Mormon musical is happening, and they've had all of this church marketing success over in New York, over at Broadway, and now it's coming to the West End. So they were doing this big campaign with the billboards, the big jumbotron at Piccadilly Circus, and they wanted to get some photographs. And it was, I mean, the whole thing was just surreal anyway, but the guy who was taking the photographs I couldn't loosen up. And he's like, "Okay, right, hang on, come here. Let's take off the wedding rings." And like, he was like, just to make me laugh. So I am laughing in that, and that is why, because he's a dirty little man who is very funny. And then, yeah, so Charlie ended up being in the video, being in one of the pictures. And the beauty of it is that whenever we took a trip to London to see this on the side of the bus, we're standing and we're posing in front of our buses, and Charlie would keep getting recognized. Not me, Charlie. And it was glorious when we went to the pageant. We had went to the bookstore and Chorley, Latter Day Books, check them out, people. When we went to the bookstore, it was Charlie. It was like, I know you from somewhere. Were you in an I'm a Mormon video? And I'm just at the back of the bookstore in knots. That is possibly my favorite life moment.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's how that happened.
You need a t-shirt that just says "I'm not a Mormon."
Well, it wasn't fun having to explain to Charlie. So when we all decided that we're not Mormons anymore, having to explain to Charlie, I just didn't mention to him, because what do you say? We're not, the I'm a Mormon campaign has been expunged from the internet.
It's a big old when he
eventually found out, when I eventually told him, because he was asking to see it, I'm like, I have no idea where it is. It is now back up on YouTube and it is a lot more accessible again. In fact,
Daisy May's asking, where can you see your 15 seconds of fame, Jane?
It's, can I just say, awful.
Fabulous.
It talks about our marriage breakup.
It's amazing, and you all need to watch it. It's so worth looking at. It's brilliant.
I just want to reiterate, I did not get back together with my husband because Jesus. I got back together with my husband because we kind of like each other.
And
so,
actually, was it Jesus that has made your marriage work, or has the church made your marriage work, Jane, or do you think this might be you and Charlie that's made your marriage work?
Or a nice segue. Tell us about Burlesque.
That's what's made the marriage work. No, seriously. So, all of my friends have left the church, and it's just me. obviously by the time COVID had happened, I was already struggling with church activity, not because I struggled with church activity, but because physically couldn't get out of the house with Ronan.
Yeah.
I've counselled with so many bishops. Nobody's ever brought sacrament. Nobody's ever, there's not really been any sort of tangible help anybody else could give. So that when COVID happened, I thought, you're all going to know how hard this is, and you're probably all going to go back to normal after it. But we can all be in the same space now.
Yeah.
They didn't really learn a lot about sticking around for people who are shut in. So I get to church from time to time. Sorry, Sarah.
Tell us about how the podcast started. Why did you start this podcast, and what's been the benefits for you of this podcast?
I was so tired of the things that we are not talking about in the classes that we would have to have conversations about in the hallway or after church. And I don't know, maybe church was never the place to have those conversations, but I knew there were people who felt like they couldn't. And I'm always, you guys will get this, when you always have to be the person who's saying, yeah, but maybe could it be this too, and bringing the nuance into it. So I felt like, church was a battle you were always fighting, because there's always someone there who's not there, who you need to be bringing into the conversation. And Alana, who started the podcast with me, my best friend, and Alana was going to be leaving. It was getting really, really tough for Alana. And I thought, the conversations that I will be having with Alana, wouldn't it be great if we could all have this conversation and talk about the things that we really wished we could talk about? Would it keep you in the church? Or would it not? Would it be something that would help you to leave the church in a healthier way? Maybe this is a terrible idea. I don't know, but I felt like it was a way to worship. I still feel like it's a way to worship. I feel like it keeps me connected to my faith. It helps me to, going from this is my whole life and all of my service and callings is around this, to you've all moved on without me. Now, that's what happens in society, right? When you have a kid who's special needs and you can't go out, my body slowed down as I slowed down to keep his pace, rather than put you in a wheelchair and scoop you along. I'll slow down with you, and it takes its toll on the whole family. So we have become so isolated. The podcast was a way of doing that. So I started it, I guess, in a lot of ways for Alana. For my pal. Yeah.
Connection and safe sort of space to talk and to air feelings. I love a good analogy, but I'm just, as you were saying about, is it okay to have these conversations? Would it bring people away from the church? I kind of feel it's a little bit like, and I don't want this to be triggering for active believer members, but if a boat is in rocky seas and there's a fear that it might be going down, you take all the action you can to try and keep it afloat, but you also put your life jacket on, don't you? And I think sometimes these conversations are the life jackets, where you're kind of saying, if the worst does happen, let's be safe and let's find a way to get through this and keep some semblance of being intact. And you have been you've kept a lot of people afloat through your podcast, and the safeguarding side of things hopefully continues to help and support people. How they find it, whether that's because they're Mormon adjacent, ex-Mormon, or none of those flavors, it is really beside the point, isn't it? It's about being there for people and being able to have those conversations. And I'd imagine that Charlie could have a really decent conversation and being a fantastic support to most believing members, having never been a member. So the fact that you are a member and can be a support to people at any flavor of belief is because you're a nice human being and are willing to put yourself alongside people and like you say, walk at their pace, which is so powerful. But yeah, it's heartbreaking, and I know it was hard for you when Alana left, and that's a repeating process, isn't it, of seeing people go out the door and feeling like, do I follow them? Do I stay? What am I fighting for? So where, how has that felt for you?
I love that you asked that. It feels a bit like, and this isn't, exclusively Alana, this is because it's all of my friends. I feel like I'm alone, and I wish you were here, because it would be better if you were here. You are church. You're not, that's not ever going to change, but I am not going to see you in the same way. I don't mean see you in the same light. I'm not going to see you on Sundays. We're not going to have that, we're in the physical same space. And you know what, automatically then it just happens. You transition out of somebody's life. So the chances of us staying in that same space, it's just really, really slim. And I think that's proven to be the case with everyone that I love who've left. Church became a lot less safe without them there. I am super aware that having done the crazy thing, having walked away, having made that jump into, whether it's homelessness, whether it's ending a marriage, whether it's, as a child leaving home, being completely vulnerable and exposed, if it's time to do it in any situation in my life, I will do it. I don't like feeling trapped, like I have no choice. And that might be the stubborn part of me. I also don't like proving people right. I don't like the thought that people are like, oh, I told you you'd leave. So maybe a lot of it is pure stubbornness. It feels a lot like everyone is a dead testimony walking right now. It feels really hopeless in so many ways. And maybe that's all right. I am absolutely fine with how it needs to end up looking. For me, church is mean. Church people can be so mean. They can also be so blooming amazing. I mean, I've had incredible experiences from just kind people in our ward over the past couple of months. You have reached out to Ronan in incredible ways. But I'm missing my sisterhood. There's no Relief Society. And Relief Society feels really, really mean. When I reach out looking for mourning, it hasn't been there. It's broken my heart so many times and has proven to be not a safe space. Now, I could go in again on Sunday and have an incredible experience, and it might feel absolutely amazing, but once it's not felt safe once, it's not safe. And if it's not safe for me, then if it isn't safe for everyone, then it's not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some would say at the moment, a lot of people know about the campaign around safeguarding that we're involved in as 21st Century Saints. And that campaign brings you into, we hope, faithful disagreement with our church leaders. And we hope that we're making a difference in that space with our leaders. But it brings with it challenges and conflict and opposition and blood boiling moments, etc., etc. So how has that been for you, deciding consciously that yes, you're running a podcast, you're doing a podcast and making a difference to people, but then you're moving into an even more clearly defined space where there is an active campaign that we are engaged in as 21st Century Saints with the church? How's that been? Tell us about that. How's that for you?
So there's a couple of things that from both points of view. From an ex-Mormon point of view, most of our audience, so we've been kind of 50-50 evenly split, which is really unusual for people working in this space. No one has ever drilled down or in any way sort of given me a hard time about, there's sometimes there's a little bit of like, what? So where are you with that?
Yeah.
No one's ever really asked me or held me to account for, is this really what you're believing? So maybe in a lot of ways there's things that I haven't really thought about. I don't know. Maybe I have. I just have not had the conversations. So supportive from the ex-Mormon community have been incredible. I'll come back to safeguarding, but just thinking, recently about when I'm just sitting in my bedroom, like no one's there to see it, and I recorded voting opposed during conference because it was just for me. It was just going to be for my journey. So, it looked like I wasn't camera ready too. So very, very raw. And I was devastated about it. I am devastated about it, and I'm angry about it. Every single person who has been in touch has just cared because they know how much it means.
Yeah.
And far fewer members of the church reach out than ex-members of the church, which just fascinates me, and it's absolutely beautiful. On the other side of things, what I'm seeing with the podcast, for the most part, we've had one person, maybe 1.2, two people who haven't appreciated what the work has been here. That's totally fine. That in itself is hugely freeing, because as someone with OCD, who I care about what everyone thinks, I have that abandoned child stuff going on constantly. The worst thing is if you don't like me. That would be the worst thing. And when it's someone who gives feedback who is being unkind, especially mostly because what it tends to be is not as much unkind about what we're doing, but unkind about the Brit Vengers or people that we love and that we from time to time work with and collaborate with. That kills me. But realizing, look at me, I don't care what you think. It feels really, really good. So I love to be able to, sort of be freed from that burden. What has helped? Having the Brit Vengers, having you guys, having just the people who are in this space with us, that has allowed us to have conversations so that we can see that it's making an impact. We can see how much it matters. I am absolutely strengthened by, that thing when someone's sharing their story with us, who initially they're like, I don't think I've got a lot to tell you, but if it will help, we're like, yeah, we would love to speak to you. And then they tell us, and they're like so apologetic about, it's probably not that big a deal, and it's a huge deal. And then they're thanking us for being brave, and you're like, do you have any idea who you are and what you just did, and honoring us? So that the strength that we gain from that has been incredible. I am angry. I'm angry at lawyers. I'm angry at church leaders. I'm angry about their priorities. But what I've learned is that church members want this. That for the most part, church leaders want this. If there were to be changes that happen tomorrow, there would be great rejoicing, because it's what people really, really want. And they may just be really uncomfortable about how we go about it. But being uncomfortable is kind of, I live with complexity and being uncomfortable. So if that's what this needs to look like, then sorry.
Here's what it is. Yeah, it makes me very angry knowing that the church leaders in this country would be absolutely delighted to implement safeguarding standards, but they won't go ahead and do it.
Yeah,
that makes me angry that they won't put their money where their mouth is and say, well, we're just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But there we go. So we've had this fantastic journey from Jane the little child, Jane needing to belong, needing to be part of something, having a family with complicated messiness and all the rest of it, And then all of a sudden, here you are now, the burlesque star that we love. Tell us about burlesque. How did that come about?
So I wanted
burlesque.
to, yeah, I wanted to do it for years. Well, I'm trying to think what was actually going on in my head. I have learned a lot from women who have, I don't know, taken risks, and Lindsay Hansen Park, and the, you know, even whether it's historic or whether it's today, Natasha Halford Parker, the work that they have done in this space. Because, see, I think my sexuality, my body confidence, my boundaries is a-okay. But I get really triggered when people talk about, if I lose weight, I get really pissed off when someone comments on how you look so good. If you lost weight, it infuriates me. As I slowed down with Ronan, my body, it took a toll. So I gained weight. I have autoimmune things that have happened. I have very dodgy knees, as my brother will well remember. I've had surgery on my knees since I was very, very young. Horrible stuff. And so my body's just really, really struggled. And why is my body anything for anybody to comment on? And I didn't. Maybe part of my journey was about temple garments. Maybe in some respects, I've always kind of skirted around it with leaders and maybe been a bit more direct on the show. But thrush, yeast infections, when women have a belly pouch and there's a little bit of an apron hanging over there, it's not good to be where the garments sit. Is incredibly unhealthy and painful. When
they're cut with a seam that goes all the way from your belly button round and up to the middle of your back. No other underwear garment, and I'm speaking as the granddaughter of somebody who made knickers for a living for M&S. No other undergarment for a woman would ever have that seam. What on earth were they thinking? It's designed to give you problems. It's designed to rub in all the wrong places, isn't it?
Yeah, the label in the back. I have a friend who, believe it or not, as a result of wearing garments, has never been able to have sex with her husband for the past 20 years, because the implications of the infections were so serious. What else? Wearing a bra, whether it's over or whether it's under, the chafe, like under the fit under the arm, belly button. Women, I suppose men will get the same thing sort of happening, but infections even in your belly button, because just those layers covering you, and it's not healthy. So sleeping in them. Now, I don't inherently have a problem with them. I don't think, but I haven't really played that out in my mind. But when I'm completely isolated in the house and I am able to do some physio or some movement, to have to change out of garments, because the simple act of that is going to make all of the inherent problems with garments 100 times worse. So I stopped wearing them around the house because I'm doing physio more or less like every sort of like 30 minutes. I'm kind of doing something with my knees to try and work on my non-existent quads, so that my kneecap stays in its assigned place. What else? The moment where you take off your garments and you're wearing clothes, and just the feeling of having clothes next to your skin is very sensory. It can be very sensual. I hate signaling that sex time is ready to. I'm so sorry for my brother, but you can deal. It's, you know, we're going to have sex tonight because I'm not wearing my garments. It's a passion killer. It interrupts the natural flow of how because if women are sort of thinking about lovemaking, while it can be immediate, something very, very intense, often there's a build-up of hours and you're getting into that headspace, and where garments sit with that is very difficult. And then just realizing that I don't have to change anything about my body. My body looks and feels the way it does at this moment in time because of the circumstances that I'm in. If I am moving in different ways, if my life looks different, my body will look different. It changes all the bloody time. And so a friend of mine, my angel beauty therapist, so there's a team of 2 of them, and one of them had started doing these classes, and I'm like, I really fancy that, because I feel like this is a women's space. I appreciate sacred women's spaces. And I think it could be fun, and it sounds really low impact. Maybe I could do this, and I probably wouldn't be able to keep up, but I could give it a whirl. Eventually, when the classes started, and they are literally like 50 steps away from me, I can get to that. I can't get out. You know, I don't drive. I've got no one to look after Ronan, but I can do that. It happens in our local chapel. And I think it's just, you know, there's a crucifix up on the wall behind us while we're all straddling chairs and grinding. And, you know, the priest is walking past outside as everyone's giving him a wave. And it's hysterically funny. There's no shame. And it's, you know, it's women talking about our bodies, talking about what's empowering. The very first week, the very first thing we did was to stand on a chair, and you know, immediately everybody's sort of feeling a little bit wobbly. We've not done this before. Are we going to fall? And so there's this unsteady straightening up, because we stand on the chair and we have to have one arm raised to click a little bit. And the first thing that we were taught in class is, if you stand on your
So Charlie's just priest, said showbiz priest. Yeah, love it. Well done, Charlie.
He was on TV. This priest, he's one of the cool new priests. Everybody's in love with him. He's also a hot priest. Anyway,
how cool is that?
That's why, like, he's like waving back because he's a cool priest. And that's why they waved in the first place, because he's also a hot priest. But anyway, so as we're standing on this chair, she taught us, if you stand on your left leg and you slightly bend your right, all your weight's here, so you've got this kind of balance, and one foot slightly up, you're resting on the ball of the right foot. If you stand like that, you will not fall. And we only ever get told, get down, you're going to fall, get down, you're making a fool of yourself, get down, it's dangerous. To stand on a chair and, you know, be just in that moment with all these other women and be told, if you stand like this, you will not fall, was just so empowering. And every class has felt like that. So yeah, there's body confidence, and it's our own boundaries. So if there's something that you're not comfortable with, then you just take it easy.
And do you have to have a name, a burlesque name? Do
you want to know my burlesque name?
Absolutely. I'm inviting you to share this, Jane.
Bonnie Bliss. Yeah. Bonnie Bliss. Oh, so all of my leotard and my vest and my knickers all say Bonnie Bliss on them. And yeah, it's my body has gotten stronger. My knee, and you know, it just feels really, really good to own this part of me. This part of me where sexuality is, you know, I'm my dad's responsibility. I am my husband's responsibility. I can only ever be sexual or have sexuality, even just to be a woman with, you know, with breasts, under, you know, the very carefully controlled circumstances that we allow it, my sexuality is never allowed to be my own. And so to stand with a bunch of women who are experiencing joy and experiencing it in our own bodies feels sacred. It really does. Yeah. And it's fun.
And Richard Heath, you might burn in hell, Richard. I'm sorry, but I lost him. Is that your new temp now? Oh, Richard.
I love it. So yes, apparently I think what it has done is unleashed me permanently talking about things that I find a little bit yeah. So
and how have you, I don't know how to phrase this, but burlesque dancing is not something a lot of people are going to equate with a temple endowed Mormon woman. Sorry for the victory for Satan there, saying Mormon, but hey ho. But it's not kind of a lot of things people equate the two, is it? So how does that work for you?
I have no idea. It may be burlesque is the final thing that takes me right out of the church. I kind of doubt it. It's because it's, you know,
I don't think that.
it's about me.
You're more likely to get excommunicated for wanting to protect a child from abuse than you are for burlesque dancing. But you know.
Yes, and you can see that comment again over on TikTok in about 30 minutes. Well, see, yeah. I actually bring up Mormonism. You know, most classes I'll say something about Mormonism, and I can't remember why. It might be because someone has maybe made a comment about a particular move, and you know, as the Mormon in the group, can I just say, for the most, you might even be someone saying it. You're supposed to be a Mormon, and you know, it's look at you. So there might be a little bit of that. Mormonism is part of my core identity, or has been part of my core identity for most of my life, and so anything I do, that's its context. I don't need to take Mormonism off and put burlesque on, if that makes sense. In the same way as that I see when I'm doing burlesque, I'm not the mother, I'm not the wife, I am me. And if I want to use this other name, or you know, if I want to use this stage name, if I decide to perform. So when is it? The weekend, I think it's the weekend of the King's coronation, funnily enough. We're doing a striptease masterclass. So we're like going to the next level. I'm figuring out how the hell to work corset.
Is this on the agenda for Sunstone?
I will make it happen. Okay. You know how to just take your clothes off. Now, you don't have to take all your clothes off. You can take your clothes on. Right. I think we're dancing to, I don't know, but anyway, we've got really good songs that we do routines to. But I've had to buy nipple tassels. And I'm going to learn to twirl them. They're pink love hearts with sequins. Oh, it's glorious. And yeah, I feel, while there are other women in the class who are like, I don't know if I'll be willing to take anything off, I know that I'm going to be really comfortable to do it, because this is this aspect of me. There's going to be photographs after, you know, so we get to do like a little boudoir shoot and things like that. So yeah, I guess there's this part of reclaiming this part of me that I want to know who you are. And actually, I think that's maybe where I have no idea what Mormonism looks like for me right now. I don't know. Am I a nice person? Do I want to be a nice person? What does being a good person really mean to me deep down? What does my faith expression look like? What things am I holding on and letting go of? And so when there's something that feels like I can connect to this part of me, and I can feel like this is authentically me, and I just found you there, I want to know you a little bit more. So I want to hold on to that.
powerful what you said, or what the teacher showed you how to do, which was, don't tell you not to do the scary thing, but let me show you how to do that scary thing and stand tall. And I think throughout your life you have exemplified doing the scary thing, you know, doing the big things, doing the big jumps that you felt you needed to take, and also being able to sort of, you're protecting your brother, you're protecting friends, you're protecting your sons, you're doing all the way through, you're being the person that does that sort of relationship of, I'll stand with you, I'll be with you. And so I think you almost are doing it in this space here, which is, you want to stay a member, I'll stand beside you. You want to leave, I'll stand beside you. I'll show you how to do it and stand strong. And you know, and I think I've got cat fur flying around my face now. I think you're really good at that, Jane. And I think what you sometimes see of as you say, you know, I was really mean at college, I could be really mean, I could be really mean. That fierceness is a strength as well as perhaps, as, you know, it's a bit of a superpower, isn't it? To be able to be the lion that roars sometimes and say, no, you're not doing that, or this is what I'm doing, and being able to just push back. It's tricky, but it is a superpower to be able to just stand on your own 2 feet and do what you feel you need to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what Mormonism is going to look like in 5 years, 10 years time. It will not look like the Mormonism that I joined in the 80s, that you joined as a teenager, nor should it. But I think when we've tried to make ourselves small to stay within the confines of whatever that was describing as a woman's role back then, you know, it won't look like that in 5 years, 10 years time. So absolutely put the nipple tassels on and do what you need to do.
Give them a swing.
That's what a Mormon looks like now, because that's you, and that's what you're doing. So,
and Ruth, I love that comment. That's what a Mormon looks like now. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I've been less concerned about what Mormonism will look like, if Mormonism is going to even still be a thing in the UK in the next 5 years, or whether it's going to just die the slow, painful death that appears to already have started. I'm more concerned about what I'm going to look like in that time. Mormonism. Sorry, Ruth, on you go. No, please go.
There was a really powerful talk several years ago. I loved it. It was when I was clinging on to a testimony. Can't remember who gave the talk now, but basically the people are the church. So although Mormonism may pull up the drawbridge and retreat back to Utah and be very American-centric, and we will lose that structure in the UK, the people of the church, you are, as a believing Mormon, you are what the church is in the UK, where however fractured that society looks, you are the church, whether they like it or not, you are. You know, that's just the way it is, isn't it? And I don't think, if we really have a Heavenly Father who loves us, he sent you here as you, with all of your strengths and with all of your abilities and you know, rawness. So he'll still love you, however you are living life and putting your best foot forward.
I think, you know, maybe part of it has been, I know how unorthodox this sounds, but maybe part of it for me has been also, what if there are things that God doesn't love about me? Can that be okay? Can that be okay if I am not perfect and there are things that...
Of course.
So it's a very unorthodox belief, while I mean details of truth claims, I can always, but I just don't find it interesting. Does that make sense?
You know, today's orthodoxy is yesterday's heresy.
Yeah, exactly.
I just know as a parent that I can't imagine ever not loving my children, and I know them warts and all. So how can I wrap my head around any sort of good parent having conditional love for their children.
Yeah, that's the bit that's the bit for me. I don't
It wouldn't be a
get.
parent that I would want a relationship with. So
yeah, absolutely. Have no understanding of any parent that would only want their children to live with them if they were perfect and in every which way. I don't understand that. We love our children.
Yeah, and
we love the good, the bad, the ugly in our children.
That's what that's what I mean.
Mm.
Part of those that, I mean, I don't even want to call them imperfections because they're part of the nature of our kids.
Who they are, yeah.
So I guess I've been less concerned about, you know, there's this moment in the Book of Mormon musical that, you know, you just sort of see everyone else laughing, and it's just hitting like a brick for, you know, for me. And this moment where you know, a girl and the story is saying, "You have crushed my soul," and where later on a missionary can talk about, "I don't even know if I believe in God." Everyone laughs, and well, yeah, can you be a Mormon who, "I don't even know if I believe in God"? That's me some days. I choose this, and I come back to choosing this. I come back to this. Mormonism is how I have been trained in connecting with divinity, and there are times when that really doesn't work, and so there needs to be something else, because it's not always working for me. So maybe that means I need to let go of ideas of there being a God at all, and that's the really scary thing. No, it's not scary. It's just because I haven't been here yet. I know that if someone is asking me, I spoke to you guys about it before. If someone is asking us, what do I look like if without Mormonism? Who am I without the church? We know the answers we would give. Like we know all the things that we would say. I have no idea what that is for me, though. That is completely different, and that is I'm saying it's completely unexplored. Those are the kinds of things that, you know, what if today this isn't working for me? Who am I in this space? Who am I without this? Do I like this person? Maybe there's things I don't. So what things is it what is the work of me? It's why I think I don't keep coming back to truth claims about Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith did horrible, terrible things. Was he a liar? Yeah, kind of looks like it, right? The role of the Book of Mormon, I value it. Don't value it more than the Bible. I feel a connection to it, but it's just as many things to value in it are so many more problematic things. I love the Pearl of Great Price. I think there's beautiful things in it. Bit of a car crash there as well. I love the complexity. I love being able to let go of what doesn't matter to me. And yet, for that to be a deal breaker for you, I totally support that, and I totally get it. It's just not what it looks like for me. Where I do struggle a bit more is the deal breakers for people that have been around LGBTQ stuff and the, you know, September 6th excommunications. I really thought when Peter was excommunicated, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Because I have to make it about me, of course. His excommunication had to be about my story. You know, if it was Nemo, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the hell that would do.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I'm.
People, Jane.
Yeah. I like them. They're good.
I know, and that's the thing. You advocate for other people. That is you all through your life, isn't it? Yeah. I think for yourself, you can kind of go, I can roll with the punches. I can take it. I can be nuanced. I can live with it. But other people, you kind of like, right? Yeah. Where's the fight?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. Don't mess with Peter. Don't mess with me.
That's it. Don't mess with my pals.
Don't mess with Rick and Julian and Laura and Richard. Yeah, don't mess.
Hold my coat. I'm going in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
And yeah, and I like that. And I guess it means that sometimes I know I do forget to turn the fight off sometimes.
What do people misunderstand about you, Jane?
See, I'm such an open book. I don't know. I think anything that people would misunderstand would be a bit of a cliche. So the assumption that I'm, in some kind of spiritual trouble, I guess maybe. But anyone who's ever spoken to me knows that, if we've ever had a conversation, they know that that's not the case. No, I don't know. I'm very, very shallow. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot to misunderstand. I don't know, because people are so nice to me. No one ever tends to say you're being a bit of a dick there. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I'm not, because when I am a dick, I am really happy to be sensible of the fact and apologize. I love being able to do that. That's one of the growth things. Sometimes, like I remember, so in our story, I guess the last part that happened is that we got our little Landon to keep forever and ever. Landon is part of the LGBTQ community and has been through a lot, and would get baptized tomorrow if anybody was interested in sharing with her, but nobody really has been. So I don't really know what's going on there, but they find some kind of spiritual connection to the church. I am very, very boundaried around that, and I make it really clear. You may be taught this at church. That's not what we believe in our home. And, we, in the same way as my youngest son, he went to a Catholic school. And so when there were things as more of a TBM that I was taught, we would have to have conversations around that about contraception maybe, or, relationships or things. Just similarly, if Landon's been taught anything at church, I want to make sure that we're providing supportive, affirming messages at home. And I think they feel safe at church because I am safe at church, because nothing's going to happen to them if I'm there, or I'll deal with it or whatever. So, and there is a community that, they show love and expression of, welcoming whenever they're there. When, maybe I've mentioned or I've explained something, that sounded a little bit patronizing. Like, I did. Oh, there's me not being perfect. Okay, something else to work on. I love being able to try and do better. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I can sound patronizing. I can do that.
Yeah, Debbie's just put a comment on there. Hi, Debbie. Jane, excommunication affects everyone. It makes us all at risk because it's the ultimate shunning. It's violent, and we should ask serious questions about any organisation that acts in that way. I think she's absolutely right to highlight that, because I've got members of my family that are parts of other religions and other organisations. I don't know of any modern organisation that we tiptoe around so carefully, trying not to get excommunicated, and the silent shunning that is people leaving the church and walking away.
If North Korea was a religion, it would be North Korea.
What you two are doing is for me, as I've stepped away. I don't believe. You two are modeling what it's like to believe and push that boundary of, I believe, but I am not going to conform in the way that you want me to conform. I'm not going to be the cookie cutter version of a Relief Society member that you expect to see. And I know that risks possibly some of these social consequences within the group. And you kind of, we've seen that happen, especially to men over recent years, haven't we? What that looks like and how it does affect everyone, and it is brutal to do to somebody, and it ripples out across all of their friends and their family group and things. But you guys are doing a fantastic job of just modeling what it's like. If you want to stay in the trenches, you're kind of doing it, but making sure that you don't just do it and conform and stay silent. It's tricky.
Yeah.
We've had you for 2 hours now, Jane.
Is there any question that we haven't asked you tonight, Jane, that you really wished we'd asked?
I think maybe the one thing is something that Charlie and I were talking about just last night. I kind of love that maybe it's almost the final, you know, a way to sort of end for him, because he has been such a part of my journey. The Brit Vengers were talking last night about things that they would ask, and PD had been asking, yes, I believe that people were eternally gay and that the LGBT community will not be automatically changed, and that people will if there was a pre-existence, sure. But Nemo had made a comment about will English people be allowed into Scottish heaven? And so Charlie and I had this really great discussion about, you know, what the celestial kingdom will look like for Scotland. And of course, English people will absolutely always be able to visit, but we had more of an interesting conversation about what hell looks like for people who are not from Scotland, and that in hell, in Mormon hell, you get terrorized by little mini haggises, and like with their pointy teeth and their sharp claws, and like legions of them, if there is any more calling Scottish people Scotch, Nemo. So yeah, sort it out. That was really just the last thing. So yeah, I know Debbie's just asked. It's I don't know if I believe or if I don't. It changes day to day. I certainly don't believe in a lot of the truth claims of the church in an orthodox sense. Absolutely not. But I do find value in some of the teachings. But yeah, I find these days a lot more problematic things than faith promoting things.
There's a lot to be said for cafeteria Mormonism. There's a lot to be said for it.
Well, yeah, see, these are the phrases that, along with you know, having a shelf.
I don't like the phrase, but
see, I mean, maybe I do. What I don't like is the having a shelf idea, because I've never been someone to just sort of, I'll sit and think about that till, you know, later. I'm not a Scarlett O'Hara, I'll deal with it tomorrow. So I've tended to deal with things as they come up, and I think it's maybe why there won't be for me an earth-shattering day it all came down, because this has been a process and there's a flow to this. I don't know. So it's it'll be pretty hard to sort of suggest that there's apostasy if I've not actually, if I don't know. I don't know, Bishop. I don't know what I believe. So yeah.
Well, so what do you want to do next, Jane? What's your next big plans?
Next plans. Okay, we have got some pretty big things in the works with safeguarding. We believe there's a couple of stories there that are going to be really, really, really significant, to the extent where we've got a little team working away on it. That's I guess that's the work of the life. I think my brother was kind of asking in the comments, do we think any of the work that we're doing will make a difference? And I would imagine maybe it's the same for the whole gang of us Brit Vengers, that it's possibly not really about that. It's about making sure that the people who are in this system have as much support as possible, that it can be as healthy as possible. I think everything changes. That's been something that I've found really hard to accept, when things can feel so hopeless, like they're never ever going to change and never going to get better, you know, when it comes to mental health and how unsupported Ronan has been in life. This is going to be it. Things always change. The doctrines of the church are always in a state of flux, and so it's just a case of which side of history do you want to be on. We could literally just sit here keeping talking and, you know, have no impact whatsoever. Something's going to change. When it comes to safeguarding, 100%, things are going to change. I'm not saying that I believe it will be as a direct result of anything that we're doing. I think a lot of people are talking about it now. I think the difference that is going to be made is in the lives of the people who are coming forward.
Yeah.
It is allowing us to do a lot. Yeah, I do think that change is going to happen as a result of the people who've come forward already and who are continuing to do so. What else is next? Yeah, keeping this crazy created space, welcoming people into it so that if things aren't going well in the church, that there is a place here where you don't have to explain why you believe the way that you believe, where you don't have to proselytize. I don't need people to come round to my way of thinking because I don't necessarily have a concrete way of thinking. There's a Brit Vengers discussion group and a Sunstone discussion group that's got incredible people in it. Conversations there are so powerful. When we're in the chat of an evening, the conversations that happen in there are incredible. When I was teaching drama, the whole work of my life was about someone who didn't have a voice, a kid who didn't have a voice, who suddenly found it, or who was able to express this thing that they would never have been able to do otherwise. I love that. And that's what I would like in this community. If you're feeling marginalized or alone or lost, that you get to be seen, and you get to be heard. I know this sounds so Mormon, but I absolutely know that as a result of the work that's happened in this space, kids have been kept safe.
Yeah.
Adults have been kept safe.
Yeah.
And that, like I say, that there more is going to happen here. So yeah, we're busy. We're going to keep being busy.
Yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job, and I think you have had a vision about what this could be that's coming to fruition. It was fantastic to see you on that panel with the women over in the States recently.
Yeah, that was great.
You really did everyone proud. It was fantastic. And so I think all of those things, this is showing my working class roots, but it's like the 2p drop machines at the seaside, isn't it?
Yes.
It might only be 2p, but it takes again and again and again, and then suddenly all it comes, it all comes.
Ruth, how long were you playing those for? And is that then you wonder why you're not a Mormon anymore? The 2p machines.
I was a long time not a Mormon. I grew
up so
without Mormonism, didn't I?
Gambling.
All the classy stuff at Skeggy for me.
The downfall of a Mormon woman. 2p machines.
Yeah, it was the claw machines for me. We like the.
Gosh, I was rubbish.
Did you like? Yeah.
So disappointed. Yeah.
I have loved this chat. You guys are just
great.
I love this space and this group and your voices, and I'm so glad that you guys are part of this journey.
And hopefully, I'm sure our audience will have loved just lifting the lid a little bit on the Jane Christie story. And apparently there's a campaign going on now to see the tassels on a bus. So you never know. 10 years on, I'm a Mormon.
Never know.
I'm a burlesque striptease Mormon star.
Oh dear. That'd be a TikTok, wouldn't it?
It
would indeed.
Do
you want to take us out tonight, Ruth?
Shall I? Thank you so much. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Sara. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you, everyone who's going to watch this after the chat. And we enjoy reading all of your messages whenever you come and find us. So, thank you so much. And if you need us, please reach out. If you feel that you want to complete the survey, follow the links. But if you need us for anything, or think there's something that we need to bring into this space, or a conversation that needs to be had, or someone you think we should speak to, drop us a line, and we'd be really interested in making that happen. So thank you so much.
Night all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.